you saw the very best players the entire country has to offer, and you saw it throughout the course of the weekend.
He's growing, he's improving at such a rapid rate. He's going to be a very good player.
This guy's a cross between Sean Marion and Lamar Odom. He's a 6'8" lefty, a high-level athlete, but also got a little bit of point-forward skills in him as he can handle and pass the ball extremely well. At this point, they are simply the standard by which everyone else is judged in prep school basketball. He's considering the likes of Michigan, North Carolina, Kentucky, Kansas.
All right, welcome back to the Upside Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Finkelstein, and we are thrilled today to have UCLA head coach Mick Cronin here with us. Coach, thanks so much for joining us.
I'm so busy, Adam. I don't know how I found.
Coach, the first thing I wanted to, right off the bat, I wanted to ask you about your first weekend on the job. I don't know if you remember this. The last time I saw you in person, we were in Dallas. You had just, it was kind of you and Coach Savino. I was kind of teasing you guys, but UCLA, you must have, where'd you stay last night? And you just kind of rolled your eyes, and Coach Savino said, I didn't do well last night. And that was first night on the road as a UCLA head coach. And where did he have you?
Somewhere in North Georgia, where he had to change rooms 3 times due to road. And the best part about it is we flew in on one of our boosters jets from Los Angeles direct to Georgia on this big time private plane and checked in a $29.99 hotel.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, as I recall, you guys were hitting all 3.
Adam, I did not change rooms. See, I just roughed it out.
I mean, that is
soft with his old, with all this stuff we have now, he's grown a little bit soft on me.
And you know what's funny? You said the exact same thing that day too. You said I didn't change rooms. I just went to bed. We were hitting 3 circuits in 3 days. So,
hey man, we look, when I was coaching at Woodward High School, we stayed in those places everywhere we went. That was hey, we were getting out of town for a trip. Nobody even questioned it. So can't forget where you came from. I got to get Coach Savino back to his Jersey City roots.
And you know what? It's funny you say that. That was an unintentional transition, but that's really one of the first things I wanted to dig into. I wanted to talk to you about your past, being the son of a coach. I know you've your relationship with your dad, not just personally but also professionally, was really vital to your development here and the progression of course, I would imagine you personally, but also professionally. Can you describe that, what it was like growing up in Ohio? From what I understand, it was a famous high school coach.
Yeah, my dad had 4 jobs, so to be with back when we grew up, it was like, now I ask my daughter what she wants to do all the time, what she wants to eat, what she wants to do. When we grew up, my sister, my brother, and I, we if you wanted to spend time with your father, you went to work with him. He was, whether he was punching tickets in the summer, like all the coaches and teachers at the racetrack, or then I used to drive 8 hours in a day to and from to watch a professional. He was with the Atlanta Braves, so I would get in the car, drive to Knoxville, watch some kid pitch, get in the car, ride back to Cincinnati like it was nothing. So the obvious thing would be I spent most of my time with him in the gym. At many practices, all his games. I never missed anything. So I was ate up with the basketball side of it. I enjoyed being with him and the scouting side, but I was never a baseball guy. My old buddy Pete Rose Jr. used to get mad at me because we'd play pickup and then he'd want a long toss and I hadn't gotten contact yet. I couldn't see the damn ball coming at me half the time. I hated baseball. Hated it. My brother was all city and 2 sports. I hated baseball, but I would go. I could scout. I could sit there and watch a game with you because of my father. I grew up in a gym. My passion was always basketball with him. And my problem was I'm the same height and weight as I was in 7th grade. So hence the coaching was the only way I was going to stay around the game.
Oh, all right. So now I'm skipping ahead because that was actually something else I wanted to ask you about. But what would you it seems to me, because my background was in coaching before I got over to the media side. And it seems to me that it's harder than ever. I don't know if you would agree with this, to get into coaching if you didn't play. There was there's a prominent line of guys who have been like yourself, the other guys who have been just tremendously successful coaches, the Lawrence Franks of the world. What would you tell somebody right now who wants to coach but doesn't have the talent to be a college basketball player?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, you just never let anybody tell you what you can or cannot do. But you just got to be willing to pay the price that's going to go along with it. Everybody has different talents and skill sets. I think coaching at the college level and the NBA level now, your communication skill set is probably more important than your X and O skill set. And I would say even more so at the pro level, and your interpersonal communication skills. So I think that, having being in a gym your whole life and knowing the language of the gym, the language of the player, having played at some level is the definite advantage. I mean, definitely. Yeah. My career ended early, but I was a great young player as a kid, so it was an advantage for me. Knowing the language of and the life and the thought process of what guys go through, what their dreams are, and everything that goes in a gym. But I still, you shouldn't let it deter you. I think those are all things that can be learned. I just lost Greg Jankowski to Loyola Marymount, and he's a huge
loss.
Talked
about an hour and a half ago. I told him we were going to do this, by the way.
Yeah, he's my guy. Greg's the best. And Greg was a good high school player. He went to Kansas to be a manager, to be a coach, and Coach Self and the guys recommended him. We brought him in. He started as a volunteer and worked all the way up with us at Cincinnati and then UCLA. Now he's a full-time assistant with Stan Johnson. But Greg was willing to take jobs for nothing.
Yeah.
And he was ready. He literally came to Cincinnati for nothing. I had nothing to offer him.
Yeah.
I could get him work to do, and he could prove himself.
Right.
That is how hard it is. Our industry, when you have a very few amount of jobs and you have thousands and thousands of people that want those jobs, you have to be willing to move. You have to be willing to work for nothing. And that's what really separates guys. My first job with Coach Huggins was $10,000. It was $800 a month. That was it. $800 a month. My first job at Cincinnati, and there was 3 coaches and me. Now there's 9 guys, and it was $800 a month. And I thought I was rich, by the way, Adam.
And I tell people all the time. I said, even people who may intern for me or whatever, I'll say, listen, working for free in and of itself does not distinguish you. Like that's just that's a core competency in this business. So you've got to be willing to work for free, and then on top of that, you've got to differentiate yourself. Working for free just gives you the opportunity to impress somebody, but it's not enough in and of itself if you're going after, whether it's coaching or any other industry. I think probably applicable where this the supply and demand are just really out of whack.
I couldn't agree more. I think the biggest thing that I look at as far as my coaching style is the responsibility, because I'm a son of a high school coach. So I always go back to that. And trying to do your responsibility to try to get your guys ready for reality. Right. Because young people, especially in our game, as long as you can help somebody win games, they'll help you. Okay. So that's going to end, though. That will end. Your eligibility's up, and there's a time when you can't help anybody win games anymore. You got to be able to help yourself. So as you alluded to, whether you're working for free or whatever, advancement is going to be based on production. Right. It's not going to be based on your rankings anymore or what somebody says you were. You're inside of a business, whether it's basketball, the media, a corporation. Your production will carry you. And people like to make money. Successful people, they recognize accountability, initiative, and production. So whether you're in coaching, whatever you're doing, I think those are the 3 things. You have to be good at what you do. You have to be committed to what you do. And you have to spend the extra time to learn that. So as you know, in the old coaching days, man, There was no synergy. There was big VHS tapes. There was driving to airports to get them, driving hours to get a tape for Coach Huggins. There was there was watching tape all night. So I didn't know what the term was. I just knew how bad I used to cramp until finally the trainer's like, what are you always doing this for? And he said, you got carpal tunnel from pause, rewind. Pause, rewind.
Wow, I never had that.
You're an old athlete, tape it up, play on, the old days of dedication, of just grinding it out. And what you realize is how that was the fun part. You shouldn't. That's why even with players, everybody wants to skip college. Everybody wants to skip to get to where they think they want to be, and you're missing the best part of it. The process is the best. When you go back, the process of struggling with your friends or coaching when you didn't have enough money to eat, and when I was working 5-star with the great Howard Garfinkel, and all the times I spent with him trying to give him winners at Saratoga on our Sunday off day. Because I knew the more winners I gave him, I was going to get relief from duty, station duty in the morning. And I'm, the sun doesn't do well with me. So any station duty I could get of relief was big. A lot of pressure on Sundays. When you're sitting there 22 and you're giving Garf horses, the guy's a legend. I'm 22 years old and I'm trying to get off station duties, I didn't have any money. I'm betting $2 to win in place on horses. God only knows what Garf was playing on horses, but those I wouldn't trade any of that stuff. Driving to Robert Morris in a car that I hoped wouldn't break down the whole way.
Yeah. Now, all right. I'm gonna reserve the right to go back to both the horses and the recruiting. But you mentioned Hugs, who obviously you came up with at Cincinnati, but you also worked for Rick Pitino, and those have got to be two tremendous influences who may be. This is something I'm legitimately curious about. I think superficially people might think those two guys are totally different, but I bet there's several commonalities in their approach. I'm wondering how both of those guys influenced your philosophy, even into the coach you are today.
Oh, well, first, to answer your first part, they're extremely similar in competitiveness. The competitive part of it. I think, having watched the whole Michael Jordan thing like everybody else over the last month, the thing that as you sit there, you recognize is how bad somebody hates to lose and how much it affects the rest of their life. And I watch it self-reflecting, but I think to work for Coach Huggins successfully, or to work for Rick Pitino successfully, you would be, if you didn't understand where they were coming from, you get chewed up and spit out. I mean, you just couldn't survive. You have to be of the same cloth, so to speak. You have to be almost like an animal from the same. From the same cat group of predator, find a way to win, strategy, film all night, the way you practice, whatever it takes. The level of competitiveness in those guys is why they've had so much success in their careers. You get the X and O's difference, personalities. I mean, one guy's from Hugs and Bragg, he tells you from I'm sure you've heard the story, 9 bars, 2 stoplights. You've hung out with him at all late at night. 9 bars, 2 stoplights in his hometown now. Rick Pitino grew up in Lower Manhattan. So, much different. Coach Hugs has got the same pair of shoes, and Coach Pitino used to send the ball boy with the Knicks to the Gucci store because he'd forget his all the time. God knows how much money he wasted on those. Very different as far as off the floor human interest stuff, the way they operate, but very, very similar as far as just the competitive drive. Brought probably, both guys were good players. Hugs was probably the better player. I think he got into camp with the Sixers, scored over 4,000. I think he scored a crazy amount of points in high school, but
people don't remember that either.
Yeah, yeah. Coach Pitino was a hell of a player. He went to UMass when, with Dr. J, and Al Skinner was this guy.
Right.
But, they're just really competitive, Adam. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just hard to describe the level. You never accept losing. That's what, if you said, what's the number one thing I learned from both guys? Losing is not acceptable. How you deal with your players about that is not always the same. But with your coaching staff, it is understood that losing is not acceptable. It's not an option. We must find a way to win.
Is there stylistically, are there things? I mean, I know this is a long time ago and the game has changed. Has the game changed so much that there's not as much to take from those guys stylistically, or is there still aspects of the way you played at Cincinnati before you were the head coach and the way you played at Louisville that can still translate, some 20 years later?
Oh, yeah, I would tell you that, my teams have always been great at rebounding.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's a direct take from Coach Huggins. So much so that I remember one of our first week or so of practice, Coach Pitino, he was fascinated. I was teaching guys rebounding techniques.
Yeah, opposite, I bet, was in the
yeah. You know how that goes. And the spin-offs and roll-offs and weak side wedges to get everything to get position, especially on the weak side, as you know. So, and it was just second nature for me because at the end of my time as an assistant with Coach Huggs, I asked him to switch to the big guys just so I could coach both. And I took a whole summer with great coach Chuck Mayshock, who recently passed away, who's a great big man coach at Ohio State forever with Eldon Miller, just to expand my career. So it's just habit. And but I remember Coach Pitino calling me up. And he's like, I've never seen that. He loved it. And so I was, that is a definite thing that my teams all still do. That it's just a matter, back, people want to talk about analytics. I mean, if you're getting more possessions because you're getting more rebounds than your opponent, it's just, it's analytics before analytics. And, Coach Huggs, staying with him, he was I'm a big believer in it, not turning the ball over. Back to, he was analytics before analytics. You have less turnovers, you have more rebounds, you're going to get 10 more possessions roughly. And if you can't win, then you need to get new players. So, with Coach Pitino, a lot of, I think it was very different, Adam, stylistically, delivery. Coach Huggins is very, as you know, is simple, direct at you, but elite at what he does. Where Coach Pitino, much more change speeds. I always knew what Coach Huggins was going to say. Always. I didn't know, back Coach Pitino was so different, but I learned in a short period of time that he had reasons for changing pitches. He changed pitches with his assistants, changed pitches with his with the players. He was a master motivator. He's a big believer in motivating, and a lead at it. And if you've ever heard him do one of those professional talks that he used to do so many of, is probably as good at that as he is as a coach. Just an unbelievable motivator of people, and keeping his people on edge, but keeping them sharp, knowing when to change pitches with his delivery with the team. I don't know if there'll ever be anybody in coaching better than him at that.
So we talked about, stylistically how the way the game has changed, but just in terms of roster construction, one of the biggest changes, especially in recent years, is the amount of turnover rosters are having, not just because of transfers, but because of, guys jumping around, going to the NBA, the G League, whatever the case may be. With regard to transfers specifically, something that I find interesting is you've always been known to really hold your guys to a high standard. I heard you say in a recent interview, I think it was with Andy Katz, that guys don't have any choice but to play hard and practice with you every day. Yet relative to, kind of industry Division I high major standards, you've had a lower transfer rate. Is there, what would you attribute that to?
Oh, honesty in recruiting. It's the easiest question I've ever been asked. What I would call that front end recruiting. If you're honest, I think if you're honest with people in recruiting and you front end recruit, meaning you tell everybody how it's going to happen on the front end, and then when it happens, people aren't running for the door. You know, when you know, I do a thing with guys. You know, whatever sitting with, say they have a basketball. I say, okay, you know, that ball is your career. You got to be prepared to hand it to a coach. You got to be prepared to and now understand. Okay, you got to give it to me for 4 years. Now, in some cases, obviously, Lance Stevenson, you got to give it to me for a year, 2 at the most.
Yeah.
You know, in his case, some guys it's going to be less, and that's pretty much obvious though when you recruit. You know who's that type of guy. But you got to be prepared to give it to me.
Right.
You can't take it back when you give it to me, and I'm molding your career. You can't say, well, no, coach, I don't like that part. You know, and you because it's not going to be all peaches and cream along the way. I mean, at some point, I'm going to have to feed you your vegetables. I'm just going to have to. You know, so you can't just. You know, although that's all my daughter wants to do is eat pizza all day. So I'm as tough as you might think I am, coach. And I'm the softest guy. Thank God for her mom. I mean, I don't ever make her eat vegetables, but terrible parent. But I tell you what, though, you got to front end recruit. I just think that if you don't front it, in my opinion, Adam, you see all these the guys running for the door. It's because they were told something else.
Right.
When why else would guys be running for the door? Like, I think everybody wants to blame the kid.
Well,
as you listen, you know, and you tell me. So I'm kind of oblivious. So you pay attention. I'm reading John Wooden books in quarantine. So everybody, when you do touch on it, most people want to say, well, today's kid. Well, I got news for you. Read Seth Davis's book, A Coach's Life, about John Wooden, because 1960s kids weren't happy with their coach either, or their playing time either. Those are person-to-person interviews. So it's not today's kid. I think it's what we tell people. I think if you tell people one thing and do another, you're going to elicit a certain reaction. It's just the way it is. I've had guys transfer, but nobody that wasn't struggling as a player.
Sure.
So guys that were struggling as a player that needed to go down a level because they weren't playing. Right. So you know, we front end recruited the player. He struggled to get minutes, and it was the right move to go to a lower school to where he could get a chance to play and have success. But I just think that it's not all the player, Adam. I don't think it is. I think the way recruiting is so competitive, it doesn't always work in my favor to front end recruit, by the way.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah. I'm sure.
But my good friend Buzz Williams and I always, you know, as we lament over the changes of the scene, right? And will we survive? He had a great line, you know, you'll end up with who you're supposed to get. You know, you'll end up with the right guy. You may not get this guy, but you'll end up with the right guy. And you know, in my time, thank goodness, I ended up with certain guys, because we maybe tried to get other guys, but we ended up with guys, you know, like Gary Clark. You know, wasn't the highest recruited guy. Now, people can claim that he was. I promise you, nobody in the ACC offered Gary Clark, and he lived in the middle of North Carolina. Yeah. So you tend to end up with maybe who you should end up with when you front end recruit. But I just think the players are getting all the rap, saying, well, but you don't know what they were told, right, on the front end. Right. You know, if you were told, I say, hey, Adam, man, we're gonna give you the ball and build the program around you.
Well, and I think the other thing,
and then we didn't do it. Would you be happy?
Right. But I think the other thing that's true, and that's always been true, is that kids will let you push them if they know that you care about them. And so I think you know, telling the truth in the beginning is the first part, but then I think that's the second part. And I think both of those things, you know, should be obvious, but aren't necessarily in this day and age of college basketball, which leads me to this question. You probably had no reason to see this, but about 5 years ago at ESPN, I was asked to write articles about everybody on staff had to do this. The 2 or 3 programs that had the most defined recruiting blueprint. And at the beginning of this quarantine, I was asked to do a Zoom with just college coaches on the 2 programs that I presented on. One was Villanova. I always knew exactly what they wanted. They wanted big guards. They wanted to be able to switch 1 through 4. They needed guys who could shoot, and they wanted high character guys. With you guys, and this was something I asked not just one, but a couple of your assistants about back in the day. I remember the question would always be, I got a call about somebody that Cincinnati was thinking about. It would be, the first question is he a Bearcat? That was just like and then someone shared to me, they said, Coach Cronin, he said he's not interested in recruiting guys. He's interested in getting guys. So not getting caught up in the fluff of, social media recruitment. But those 2 things really resonated. And as I said, I think that there was a big interest from college coaches who were interested in that philosophy. So my 2-part question is, how accurate was that? And secondly, how much of that have you brought with you to UCLA?
Oh, all of it. And some of Jay's stuff too at Villanova. You got to get guys who can shoot.
Yeah, right.
Tried to, at Cincinnati, it was okay. If we're going to sacrifice something, we're not going to sacrifice the Bearcat side of it. The fact that he wants to play win. We had to sacrifice shooting at times because those, we're not picking from the top of the heap. When I was there, here, obviously it's a little bit different. Where your pecking order stands in the recruiting process at UCLA. So, but your core of, I think you got to get guys that want to win. Why else? I think what happens in the modern day, there's people that recruit, and it doesn't matter if they win. And people talk, well, that their recruiting class. Well, I don't care. I mean, if your recruiting class could be ranked 1 or 30. Well, if you only need to sign 2 guys, how high is your class going to be ranked? If you're always having a class ranked high, it's because you need 5, 6 guys every year.
No doubt.
So it's so misleading to the public. I think you want your team ranked high, and I can assure you that that's what the fans want. But as you know, the recruiting game of and I don't begrudge anybody for the way they make a living. It's like Don Corleone said, makes no sense to me how you make a living. Nor
are us evaluators the ones who come up with those mathematical formulas. But because I completely agree with you. I always say that. I was like, well, if they got the best 2 guys, who cares if they don't have 6 of them? Why
wouldn't their class be ranked first? But at the end of the day, you want to win games, not rankings. You want to win games. You want your team ranked high in the polls. You want to have a great season. So I think that you got to get guys that winning is a part of it. If they have no interest in winning, if their interest is everything outside of basketball, it's not going to work. I think if and I don't want to put words in Jay Wright's mouth, but I played them when he had a rough season one time, and we had a great year in 2012 at Cincinnati. And, I knew that wasn't going to last. He was going to make changes on his personnel. He probably would tell you that's where they got away from getting Villanova guys.
Yeah, that was the premise of my story. It was a return to kind of culture and character, and that became a huge part of what they were all about.
We went into. I remember that we went on campus at Villanova, and we won the game, and we scored in the 70s. And I remember getting on the bus. It was the last game. It was a beautiful Philadelphia day. Getting my cheesesteak, thinking, I can't believe this just happened. Like, you don't walk into Villanova's on-campus arena and score 70-something points. Like, you'll get tackled before that happens. Like, you literally will get tackled. I mean, there'll be a fight will break out before that happens. Right. So I knew he would change it. And, what had happened in recruiting, was chronicled. Maybe he signed some guys who were rated, all the stories. You got to get back to, at the end of the day, if you look at the teams that are winning, okay, Chris Beard's team lost in a title to Virginia, highly competitive, tough guys. older guys. You know, you look at Jay's team, a mix of pros and competitive guys, his two Villanova teams. I think you got to mix it up. You got to have talent, though. I mean, you know, Rick Pitino was on here. He'd jump in and say, you know, I'll take talent every day, because he would believe in his ability to coach that talent. But I think you better make sure that the talented guy wants to win, because if the talented guy doesn't want to win, and he's more interested in other things, that's probably what happened to Coach in Boston. So, you know, that's the most important thing. Along the way, Adam, you try to assess things. And you alluded to something earlier about recruiting. Yeah, don't recruit, get, to steal one from the great Jerry Wainwright. That's his line. Don't.
Oh, that was his? Okay. Okay, I didn't know that. All right.
Don't recruit, get. I steal from a lot of 5-star guys. So, but what I learned along the way in my time as recruiting for Coach Huggins, Coach Pitino, and then in my own, the guys that are the hardest to recruit, the biggest pain, they always turn out to be a pain.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I get it. You have to modernize yourself. Today's kid, they need to be on social media, and it's all part of it. You know, it's just the way it is now. I mean, it is what it is. Hell, my daughter's got me doing some TikToks. So,
no,
I'm
really?
not putting them out though. Yeah, oh yeah, she's got them on her private thing. I'm not putting them out, but I last thing I need is attention. I need players. You know, I think you have to modernize yourself. You got to understand, like today's kid, you know, they want excitement, but there's a difference between, I think, wanting excitement and a sense of people recognizing your accomplishments as a young player or being drunk on it. There's a big difference. And that's where you got to try to ascertain, you know, who's the right fit in the recruiting. In the whole process, you got, you know, that's the trick. Recruiting is an art; it's not a science. You know, and then for the people out there, they wonder, well, why didn't this team take that guy? Well, they might already have 4 guys at that position, so why would anybody come?
Or they might know more than you do in the general public.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there are no secrets now. I mean, you know, today's recruit, as you know, they can, if you had a player on here, a top 20 player, he could, his top 5 schools in his mind, he would start telling you, well, they got this guy, this guy, this guy. If he goes pro, I come in. I mean, it wasn't like, it's just that's where it's changed the most.
Yeah.
You know, that is where it's totally changed the most. Because with that top 20 guy, you know, he's trying to get in and get out. And I understand that totally, you know, so even with those guys, I front end recruit, you got to be honest. You got to tell them, you know, here's what it is. And how you think you can help them accomplish what they're trying to accomplish, even though they're not going to be in your program very long. There's no problem with that. You know, Lance Stevenson played his heart out for me in the 1 year he was with me at Cincinnati.
Right. Coach, you've mentioned your daughter a couple times. We talked about your relationship with your dad. So this may be not your typical interview question, but I'd like to ask you about parenting, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
not good on the vegetables.
You're right. You know vegetables. You will do TikTok, but you're not making her do vegetables. When you first took the UCLA job, Myron Metcalf did a big exclusive on you and decision making around it. There was a lot of talk about, you know, where you were for UCLA, but I think more accurately it should have been like where UCLA was for you, because you had lots of other opportunities to make a move, but you never did because of your daughter and her mom. But the 3 of you kind of all made the move to Southern California together. And in these, you know, this day and age of, you know, modern families, it seems like there's a lot of stuff for families of all different kinds to emulate there. And so if you didn't mind, I just wanted to ask you about that. Yeah,
I wished if Darlene was here, my daughter Samantha's mom would tell you, if we could be advocates for the way divorced parents could operate, or be examples for putting their children first, and always doing that no matter what. And it hasn't always been the smoothest of roads, but both of us have always put our daughter first, and that's allowed our since '08 when we split up. It's allowed us to get through different times in our divorce relationship over 12 years. That's always our love for our daughter, and putting her first is always helped us get through any peak and back to a valley in our relationship. And always treating each other with respect, especially in front of our daughter. And she knows only that her mom and dad have always done everything as friends. So
including
yeah,
moved to Southern California.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, when they made the move with Steve. I'll give you the story. When they made the move with Steve, we were sitting at one of my daughter's swim meets at Xavier, by the way, which was really brutal to have to go to swim meets there. But my daughter went to Catholic school, and that's where we had our swim meets. So I remember Darlene leaned over and whispered in my ear. She goes, "Has UCLA called you?" And I looked at her and I said, "That's the first time you've ever asked that." And that's when I knew that she would be open to the idea of moving to Southern California. My ex-wife's not from Cincinnati.
Okay.
She grew up in Alaska, so she went to Washington State.
Okay.
So she ran. She hurdled ran hurdles in the Pac-12. So that's where our talks began. So our move here was, would this be great for our daughter? The opportunity wise for her life. She lived a pretty charmed life in Cincinnati, being the son of the Bearcats coach, and my family's got a great name in Cincinnati, and her extended family. Toughening her up a little bit. I think forcing her to move across the country. It's probably been a good thing for her. Just from that aspect. I think that today's kids we don't let them deal with any adversity. We forced her to deal with adversity by moving, but also opportunity here is endless for her. She goes to a great school in Campbell Hall. But like I said, I'm far from perfect. And I'm not cool anymore, Adam. She's 13. I used to be so cool, man. I mean, I remember she demanded it from like age 8 to 11. She demanded to sleep in my bed on the other side of the king size.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, mine's 7, and we've noticed like she's, the hugs are like a little less affectionate. Really? I was like, oh, this is crushing,
Yeah, I think it might have been like 7 to 10. She came in one night and she said, "Dad, this is ridiculous." I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "I'm not going to bother you." Because all I did was watch film on my iPad. And she was, "You're not going to bother me. I'll just roll over here and go to sleep." And she didn't leave for 3 years. Now I'm lucky if I can get, if she's 13, so I'm lucky if I can get any attention at all. I mean, it's like, do I even exist? I've become, other than the person that needs, Dad, I'm hungry.
Right.
Dad, and it's time to order something on Amazon because she can't go to the store. The evolution of being a parent, is but ours is so yeah, we're Modern Family, and I'm also in the process, hopefully, of I've had the same girlfriend for a long time, so we have Adam. We've gone through with some legal stuff of moving my girlfriend and her son with us to California. So we're hoping that'll happen this summer. So we're definitely Modern Family. And I'll throw another one in. So my daughter goes to school with Julie Bowen's kids. So that's life in LA of real Modern Family, which I only knew
that's we're not in Cincinnati anymore.
Yeah, no. My daughter, nobody at Cincinnati, everybody knew who she was in school. Not at Campbell Hall. She's way down the pecking list behind some really famous people.
Well, I really appreciate you being open to talk about that. I know I'm dominating your time here. I just, if you'll allow me, just wanted to end with a couple
I'm
of
okay.
really quick questions about this specific time. You mentioned Happy Gilmore there. I've been told you're a big movie guy.
Oh, yeah.
Are there any specific habits, interests? I'm always very interested in like daily structure, but specifically in this time, is there anything that you're doing more of, exploring more in the? I don't know about out there, but this is week 10 for us of quarantine, social distance, whatever you want to call it. So just curious if there've been any new habits or practices born out of this period for you personally.
Yeah, I think we've all probably gone through two. Originally it was like, we're locked in, and everybody was. Well, I didn't do it. I didn't break down and watch that Tiger thing on that Netflix. I couldn't make myself.
Me neither.
I couldn't do it, but so then it became searching. I keep a movie list on my phone that people recommend.
Okay.
So if you give me any recommendations, I put them in. So I worked down my recommended list. I always hit back on some of the classics. But then there probably about 2 weeks ago, I got to a point where, other than The Last Dance and Billions, I don't even turn the television on. So Sunday night was my TV night. Like, I won't have the TV on the rest of the week. So I dove into all the Coach Wooden books. Seth Davis was impressed because I read his book in 2 days last week.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
I read his book in 2 days, but wasn't like I was busy. So I think it's been early on. It was shock, and now golf has opened up, so I can get out and do that. I need a break when the season's over, and obviously moving was very taxing. Not changing jobs, by the way. That was exciting. It was exciting, and it was hard. And I had to leave abruptly, so I didn't get to properly hug all the people I wanted to hug at Cincinnati, because it's bang and you're on the plane and you're gone, and that's just the way it is. And that day will come, but it's just, I would say I'm like you, probably. I'm sick of my phone. Like, like if this all ended, it's like I don't want to. I want to take 3 calls a day, and that's it. But that's the only way we can see people.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the thing that I've heard is, and I won't take this personally, I'm sure you're sick of Zoom too. I mean, I'm not. Most of my Zooms aren't with Mick Cronin, so this is great for me. But I'm sure if I were in your shoes, I'd have had my fair share of these Zoom FaceTime type interactions as well.
I got to try to do one today with our new AD. It's like, even at UCLA, we got a new athletic director, and we should all be at his press conference today.
Right.
Congratulations to Martin. Now, he was on my scouting report back in the day. He played at UNC Wilmington for Jerry Wainwright. But
he played for Jerry. Interesting.
Yeah. So it's just so different. I mean, I don't know. I got bored. I went and got a new car. My lease was up, so probably overdid it a touch on the car. When
in Rome,
Why not? You're in LA, get a convertible. Yeah, but I need I will tell you, recruit, right now, we're such, this, we're such creatures of habit.
Yes.
We're so used to seeing our players and being around our players, and I worry about our players, and it's like, we worked so hard to get to a point. I had never had a team come close to playing as well as this team was playing at the end of the season.
Really? Wow.
And it was because of their individual growth as players. We were making less mistakes. We were being aggressive at the right times. Guys were really blossoming. I mean, so everybody was playing better on our team. People want to attribute things to coaching. Your job as the coach is to get your players to play better.
Right.
And you do that in practice. So we got better, and then all of a sudden it just ended on us. So we had such a good momentum going. No matter what would have happened for us in March, we would have then went into spring workouts, and I just worry it's like, maybe you're gonna have to start all over again. When can we start over again? And then you got, we have Johnny Juzang and Jalen Clark, and it's like we getting them on board and getting them in. I don't know. I don't want to go on vacation. I want to go back to Westwood. I live in
everybody feels that way.
6 miles south to Westwood. I want to go be around the guys. I want to have the guys over to a pool party or something at the house and get back to our that's our normal. That's all I really probably, it's like every day you fight when can you get back to your normal routine. And I'll leave you with this, Adam, like on that topic. It's tougher for the young people. And not to say that I want anything bad to happen to me, but like I'm 48, I've had my time. I'm a history guy, so that's why I like with the some of the Coach Wooden books.
Okay.
The history of it is more interesting than to me, because I know what supposedly happened, what maybe happened. Somewhere in the middle always lies the truth. But the history of it all, there was a time where 48 was life expectancy.
Yeah.
In our world.
Right. No doubt.
You're talking about people in the prime of the, you're like my daughter hasn't seen another kid person to person in 10 weeks.
Yeah, that's hard. It's been hard for my kids. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's she doesn't have a brother or sister, so that's hard. Like I talked about all of our players, they're in the prime of their life right now. And to have to go through this, and they look at us for answers. Like, you're their coach, and usually got a pretty good answer for them.
Yeah.
And people at the beginning of this quarantine, I did these interviews. It was all, man, are you sad your season ended? And I kept saying, well, if this is the worst thing that ever happens, our season ending to us, then we'll have a great life. And I think everybody got that now as this quarantine, that, the virus has become such a big deal. And like back where you're at in New York, it's been brutal.
Yeah.
It's for our players. I told them that we huddled up outside and we got back from, and I knew everything was canceled, and we got back from Vegas for our conference tournament. I told them, if this is the worst thing that ever happens to you in your life, you're going to have a great life. But I didn't know at that time that this is probably going to be the worst thing that ever happened.
Yeah.
Living through a pandemic, and, just pray to God for their families. You got people with parents, my dad's 78. I'm begging him. They open restaurants in Cincinnati. Don't go. I'm begging him not to go.
No, you and me, but
it's just, you're taking the prime of these young guys. It's the prime of their life.
Right.
Right now. I mean, it's just, this is their time, all young people. So I feel more for them.
That's well said. I will leave you with this question. This is a question that I've started to ask everybody, at least every coach on this. But I'm gonna give you an audible if you'd like it. So I ask if there's a favorite book that's shaped you, motivated you, or that you would recommend. It doesn't have to be, it can be a history book. You mentioned history, but in your case, if there's a favorite movie that you'd put on everybody else's list, we could end on that too. Either one.
Well, since I'd rather try to do something more productive, and I don't read near as many books as a lot of people. But there's an easy read book, and it's called The Art of Influence. And anybody out there that's a head coach or aspiring in coaching, it's a short book. It's an easy read, and it's tremendous. You read it in one sitting. The Art of Influence, tremendous. And I try to reread it every year. And it basically settles around if there's a difference between power and influence. If you want to really influence others, there's an art to it, and I don't want to ruin it for you. So
I'm gonna get it now. Yeah, I'm gonna get it.
It's written in a neat little parable form, so it's very interesting. So, but I try to reread it every year, being in a leadership position.
Yeah,
because I need to influence others. And, I think that your greatest fidelity to a higher cause, so to speak, and as a coach, it's a badge of honor, the term coach in my household. because my dad never coached for money. He coached for love of the game and love of influencing young people. That's the number one thing we need to do is try to, whether we have a guy for a year or 4 years, you want to try to influence them in a positive way. I think that's what this is all. Because if you just win games, I think your existence is going to be pretty hollow.
There's no better place to leave it than there. Coach, this went longer than I anticipated. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time and so open to talking about different things. And we wish you and your family best of luck as we continue to get through this period.
You got it, Adam. It's good to catch up, buddy.
You too, Coach. Thank you again.
All right, take care, my friend.